at midnight tonight. That's in about 4 hours. As for Canada, the White House is already letting them know early, saying that they are getting hit with a 35% tariff, hiked up from 25%.
It began like a power play. Trump believed Canada would fold the way smaller players often do when the White House turns up the heat.
Tonight, President Trump vowing to expand this trade war, cutting off trade talks with Canada because of a new Canadian tax on American tech companies, calling it a direct and blatant attack on our country.
The U.S. president has Canada firmly in his sights again. In his latest social media post, it appears to have grave ramifications for trade between Canada and the United States.
It's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. And so I said, we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, "We have just been informed that Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced that they are putting a digital services tax on our American technology companies, which is a direct and blatant attack on our country."
First came the warnings, then the public jabs, and finally, the threat that Canada's recognition of Palestinian statehood would freeze any trade deal in its tracks. Ottawa did not flinch. Instead, it dug in and waited for the right moment to strike. That moment came when Prime Minister Mark Carney quietly turned the game around, leaving Trump on the defensive. YouTube is not the biggest fan of content like this, but we believe people deserve to hear the truth. If you agree, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us beat the algorithm and keep going. The tariffs stayed, the tension grew, and the table shifted. What Trump thought would be a dictated deal slipped right through his hands. The question is whether this was just a trade standoff or something deeper, and what it says about the real balance of power between Washington and Ottawa. The threat came without warning. Hours before his own deadline for new tariffs against Canada, Trump reached for his favorite weapon. A midnight post on social media, not a statement from the Oval Office or a diplomatic cable, but a blunt shot into the public square. He declared that Canada's support for Palestinian statehood would make a trade deal almost impossible.
U.S. President Donald Trump intensified his trade war with Canada a day ahead of his August 1 deadline for a tariff agreement, saying it would be very hard to make a deal with Canada after it gave its support to Palestinian statehood.
No back-channel talks, no quiet diplomacy, just a public attempt at humiliation. And that is why this was never only about trade. France, the United Kingdom, and Mexico had all taken similar positions. None of them faced the same retaliation. Canada's offense was different. It was the display of independence. Under Carney, Canada refused to shape its foreign policy around American approval. That defiance cracked Trump's image of control, and he responded by turning trade into a stage for personal revenge. Carney did not bend. There were no phone calls asking forgiveness, no efforts to soothe Trump's ego. Canada stood by its position. Trump's frustration was obvious. On camera, he accused Canada of treating American farmers very badly, pointing to imaginary tariffs over 200%.
Right, that's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%, and they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years.
He even implied that because the United States provides military protection, Canada owed him economic submission. Sovereignty, in his view, was a commodity to be traded. The facts told a different story. Canada and the United States share one of the most balanced, deeply integrated trade relationships in the world. Tariffs are negotiated under agreements, not imposed at random. Trump's portrayal of Canada as an exploiter ignored decades of mutual benefits. His attacks were not about correcting imbalances. They were about manufacturing an enemy. This time, the villain he chose was a democracy tied to America by geography, history, and economy. The contrast between the two leaders was sharp. Trump wielded fear and intimidation. Carney projected steadiness and principle. The message from Ottawa was clear: sovereignty is not negotiable. Trump expected a quick concession. What he met was quiet resistance built on confidence and preparation. At the same time, Trump's own economy was weakening. That week's job numbers came in below expectations. A revision erased nearly 260,000 jobs from earlier counts. Economists pointed directly to tariff uncertainty as the reason businesses were holding back. Trump's trade war was cutting into his own economy, not fixing it. He blamed the statisticians, accusing them of rigging the data. When leaders attack the messenger instead of the problem, it shows instability, not strength. Canada saw an opportunity. While Trump swung tariffs like a hammer, Ottawa invested in its own industries, steel, aluminum, and manufacturing, ensuring they were fueled by Canadian labor and resources. Foreign governments and businesses moved closer, eager to trade with a partner that valued stability. Carney's vision was not about striking back. It was about making Canada less vulnerable to America's moods. Economic resilience was being built through independence. Every time Carney rejected a bad deal, he reinforced the idea that Canada's agreements must respect sovereignty. Trump sought submission. Carney built strength. Trump also counted on fatigue. He thought Canada would tire of the constant threats. Carney counted on persistence, knowing steady resolve could outlast unpredictable fury. Sovereignty, Canadian officials reminded people, is like a muscle. If it is not exercised, it weakens. By standing firm, Canada was not just defending one policy. It was defending its independence. Even the trade landscape itself was not as fragile as Trump portrayed. Nearly 90% of Canada's exports to the United States were already exempt from blanket tariffs. These protections were not luck. They were built into agreements. Europe and Japan faced far broader exposure, but Canada had secured carve-outs. Trump's weapon was closer to a bluff, and Carney knew it. The very framework Trump had once celebrated actually limited his leverage. Advisors admitted it. Ottawa understood it. Yet Trump continued to posture as though Canada were on the ropes. The reality was the opposite. By preparing quietly, Canada had ensured that even aggressive threats would cause minimal damage. The contrast could not have been sharper. Trump relied on social media blasts and ultimatums. Carney relied on strategy and long-term planning. Trump's pressure looked less like negotiation and more like theater. Ottawa's steady course turned Canada into the image of stability. Trump wanted to teach Canada a lesson about power. Instead, he revealed how little his power could achieve against a prepared partner. Midnight posts, public accusations, exaggerated claims, none of it forced submission. Canada's defenses held. Its economy kept building. Its leadership emerged from the standoff with greater credibility on the global stage. Trump threatened fire. He forgot to check if Canada was already fireproof. At the same time, Trump's grip on America's economic institutions showed cracks. He turned his anger toward Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, the very man he appointed. He pressured Powell to slash rates or step down. With the resignation of a Federal Reserve governor, Trump gained the chance to install someone who would follow his instincts, putting an institution designed to be independent at risk of becoming an arm of the presidency. This was not about strengthening the economy. It was about controlling the scoreboard. Trump had already reshaped boards, removed commissioners, and attacked agencies when the numbers embarrassed him. Extending that control to the Federal Reserve could destabilize global markets, not just America's. Ottawa understood the risk. Carney's push to diversify Canada's trade is not posturing. It is protection against volatility from the South. Trump reshapes the economy to serve his image. Carney reinforces Canada's foundation for the future. The fragility of Trump's claims became visible with each new data release. Job growth stalled. Revisions erased hundreds of thousands of positions. Markets slid. His advisors admitted their policies disrupted hiring and investment. Tariffs meant to revive manufacturing, instead accelerated job losses. For Trump, it was more than economic weakness. It was political failure. He believed America could pressure allies without consequences at home. The illusion is gone. Canada did not lash out when numbers turned against it. It adapted, invested, and kept moving. While the United States lost leverage, Canada gained it. Exemptions shielded its industries. New partnerships abroad expanded opportunities. Trump thought tariffs would break Ottawa. Instead, they revealed America's own fragility. Canada's refusal to bend showed that endurance and preparation can outlast fury and spectacle. And the lesson is clear. When one leader values image and control, and the other values resilience and sovereignty, only one path leads to stability. Trump promised dominance. What he delivered was chaos. Carney promised protection. What he delivered was credibility. The difference is now plain to see. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the truth that others overlook.